This is Talking My Walking. I mean, this is just another voice in the wilderness. Today I'm going to talk about free choice in the web of deceit. I think many of us, maybe most of us, do understand that we live in a web of deceit. Of course, we have different perspectives about what this web of deceit is or it is not, but it has become pretty obvious that there is a lot of lies, a lot of weapons of mass deception, a lot of misinformation, a lot of perception manipulation, and so on and so forth. So, how do we manage to enjoy free choice, or how do we come up with? How do we think? What do we think about free choice in this context? Because the free speech, this web of deceit, lives within us. Sometimes why do I repeat it? Because most people I know, maybe they always think, that's my perception. I don't pretend to be totally right. The point is, I go back to this. I go back to this issue because it's, in my opinion, it's very important, and I don't know if we do really get it. And because the thing is goes like this. We are born with the ability with the capability for critical thinking, for critical analysis of the reality of everything, then to identify patterns, to separate, to have a moral mind. We have a moral mind. We understand good and bad, and all those things are innate, but they are shaped how we perceive them, and everybody understands this. It is shaped by our culture, okay? Because the perception changes over time because the culture changes, the cultural environment changes, the socio-cultural environment changes, the values change, the knowledge changes, and therefore our perception of reality changes, and the so-called free choice changes, not because it was free, but because the perception of reality changes. It has nothing to do with the natural ability to exercise free choice. It has to do with free choice is always influenced by the dominant narratives that are that live in our subconscious mind, that are they are integrated in an organic system. They are not fluctuating, they don't live around our minds, they don't live outside, they live within organic systems. Okay? they are binded with organic systems. That's our body that feels and thinks, okay? And as you know, emotions and feelings, the emotions are kind of public and feelings are kind of private. But because emotions, we can perfectly identify them in the face and in the changes of how we speak. I mean, in many details that can be observed from outside. But feelings, all this apparatus is organic, is part of a living organism, a living structure. They don't exist separated from it. This idea of mind and body is, of course, and many people know it, is just an absurdity. It doesn't exist. In reality, there is only one thing, the body. That's the body that produces the mind. And the mind by itself is not, it's a product of language framing, culture, society, and everything. You know, we don't have a mind of our own. We have an individual experience, okay? We are a living organism separated from other organisms, and that therefore we have a living experience. We experience individually. But the mind itself is not individual, it's social and it's cultural. That's why the free choice is never totally a private and free. It is always a social process, a socio-cultural process. It's also ideological and political, of course, and economic. That's why many of us are so easily instrumentalized over this issue of free choice and freedom in general, and it's about our we see it as our right to exercise, because it's about us, it's our freedoms. Yes, they are our freedoms, but how we perceive reality is never a free process. And the more we believe that we are free from influence, from being manipulated, the more instrumentalized we become. And by instrumentalization, I mean that we become tools of others, of individuals, groups, institutions, organizations, political parties, or governments, or whatever. That is what I mean by instrumentalization, that we become a tool and a weapon while thinking and believing that we are exercising our free choice. How can we think that we have free choice if we do not understand that we live in a web of deceit? And if we do not understand it, and we can never be totally free. There is not absolute concept of freedom or absolute state of freedom. Freedom is relational, as everything else in life. You know, there is a direct relation between us and the food we eat and the environment where we have to survive. Those things do not exist separated. They are reflected in our well-being, in how we perceive ourselves, in how we perceive others, and how we think about things. This is very important, because the way we think and frame and use the language and concepts already is manipulated, and we learn it because we learn patterns. And if we do not understand this, of course we are going to always always side with the very people that will use us and dump us when they don't need us anymore. And talking about freedom, it's useless. What we need to understand is the roots of the problems, where they come from, and what can we do about it as a society, as a civilization, as a collective, not against the individual, but for the possibility of creating a society and a civilization where individuals can really be free of manipulation, of instrumentalization, which we are not. And by free, I don't mean totally free, but much more freer than we are today, that we believe that we are free. The reason why I recurrently talk about these issues is because we all need to get it, have a clear picture about it. And otherwise, even when we have an intellectual understanding of it, or a theoretical understanding of it, we do not have an holistic understanding of it, which means that we do not understand how it operates and controls our own way of thinking. I'm not talking about controlling our thoughts, but controlling the way we think, how we frame, how our thoughts are framed. And this is this, in my opinion, it is crucial for the understanding of reality, and to protect ourselves, to immunize ourselves against manipulation, because manipulation is ubiquitous. The web of deceit we live. The web of deceit is our fishing bowl, is the fishing bowl where we swim, where we have to survive, where we build our lives and identity. And when I talk about the web of deceit, I'm not talking about just only one narrative. This is not about only one narrative. It is about a plurality of narratives that in the end, almost all of them work for the same purpose: to divide, to tribalize, to atomize, to polarize, to keep us divided, to keep us unable to perceive, to have a deep, holistic understanding of our social condition, of the social condition of our nature, or of the nature. Okay, you got it. So, and now we need to have a society, that with an economy that is social and ecological. Otherwise, what we have is a hierarchical system to extract wealth or to funnel wealth to the top 10% and to be truly accumulated by the 1% and the 0.1%, which is, and all narratives, or almost the large majority of narratives are just framed in a way to reinforce this order, to make sure that we do not understand reality, but through the lenses that reinforce this order. And we, most of us, try to survive within the limits, the boundaries of this reality. That's why we go from liberalism to fascism, because we don't understand that this is the natural sequence, it's the normal path. We don't understand it. It's not because, again, let me emphasize it or re-emphasize it. This is not because we are stupid or we are not able to understand it intellectually. It is because we do not have a conscious transformative process that enables us to get rid, to overcome, to the patterns and the dominant narratives that keep us enslaved, not free. Forget about free choice. Nothing that you think you freely choose, it's really chosen or chosen freely. I'm sorry, that it might be not sometimes grammatically not right, but I think you should bear with me, because I think this is important, even if you for those at least that can see how relevant it is, because how can we escape? How can we escape the prison if you don't even recognize that we live in that we are imprisoned? We don't. We are not only inoculated with ideas. We are inoculated with narratives that explain, that frame the reality, that create a system of thought and understanding. Okay, that's how that gives us the tools. So we are inoculated with the tools. We are colonized with the intellectual tools that frame how our cognitive process operate. Okay, and this is how we perceive reality, and that is part of the process that we think and we believe is a free thinking process, and it is not. Those tools, those intellectual frames and boundaries, those lenses through which we understand reality and ourselves and identify patterns. Okay? When we look, we need to be deeply aware of this to understand the roots of the problems, to understand how our systems work, how our societal systems work, how this is all. Otherwise, we cannot, because we start from false, incorrect axioms, and as logical thinkers, and this is a very important point to me, because we confuse rationality with logic, and we think rationality, this is what allows us to distinguish, to separate what's wrong from what's right, what's true from what's a lie, but it doesn't work like that. As logical beings, as beings that think logically, if we are given an axiom, if you start from the starting point, if we believe that the starting point is correct, if we assume it for whatever reason, and the rest is logic, the narrative that was built upon those principles and values, if it seems logical, we just believe it. We take it as true, and it can be totally wrong and false, and it doesn't matter, because that's how our cognitive processes work. We don't so that's why we need to understand that we operate in these logical thoughts, and therefore it seems, apparently, everything comes from our choice. We choose freely. I mean, I can in a couple of hours I can go to I can choose the restaurant where I want to eat. If I go to the restaurant, that just this is just an example. I can go through the menu and pick a meal of my choice. I exercise free choice, but not even this choice is free, as you can understand. You have to choose the restaurants that you can afford, for example, or that are in the nearby area. Of course, they have to be the ones, but even your taste, it's not a free choice. The meals that appeal to you, they have been part of a cultural construction, a learned process, okay? Not only, of course, it has to do with with your idiosyncrasies, but those idiosyncrasies, there is always an element. It is always an epiphenomena, which means that there is something always on the top of, and be epigenetic, epicultural, okay? So this is why it's you cannot think. That's what I'm trying always to emphasize, that things are always relational. So you're free when you exercise what you're supposed to be free, a process of free choice. That process is always relational. It doesn't pop up out of thin air. Okay? It has a past, and it is going to for a purpose, a present or future purpose that is influenced by that past, and that past, that you accumulate is a lot of influences and manipulation that we all should acknowledge. More than acknowledge, we should engage in a process, a conscious, transformative process that allows us to be more conscious of what the human condition really means, of our social condition, socio-cultural condition, and how it is important to, if we want to have a society based on truth, justice, and trust, instead of what we have today, which is a web of deception. But it's a web of deception for wealth accumulation and power concentration. It's not a web of deception just because they want to deceive us or keep us distracted. There is an objective to keep us the weapons of mass deception and mass destruction. They have a purpose, and the purpose is to control us. Okay? They are not just and if you don't understand this is as part of a class war, another important that we cannot understand reality without also understanding it. It's for class. It's a class war, always. And if we do not understand it, we just, you can see these people. I can give an example. I gave yesterday the example of Obama, of the open change, Obama deception, okay, and Trump MAGA deception. Do these people, many of these people do understand they are being deceived? They are being instrumentalized and used and abused? And that in the end, this is what seems to be, there is no connection between these two men. They seem to be in the antipodes, okay? But they are not. They are part of the same problem. There are lots of differences in style, in maybe cultural identity, and some other things. But in the end, these men are part of the cultural war, okay, and class war against us. They are the ones, they are the face of the oligarchy, or they are the facade of the democratic process. But they are not Democrats. We don't care what they call them. They are pro-oligarchy. They are not pro-democracy. They are pro-oligarchy. They are pro-plutocracy. They are rewarded. And it means that they become richer. They become more wealthy out of this process. Okay? And that's why they are just the two faces of the same coin. And people in MAGA, so many people, and of course there are already people in this movement, call it a movement, that they already understood they were deceived. But there are many that still believe that Trump is a good guy. The same goes for Obama. Okay, there are so many people that still believe that Obama was a good president. Okay? You know? And they cannot see the similarities between the intersections between these two, that this is just two, the two faces of the same coin. All right? So this is why these people are there just to keep the managed democracy. Why they do want to manage democracy? Because it's the process by which they can exercise force and violence, and at the same time, I mean, repression, economic repression, austerity, and all the rest, destroy the fabric of society, and while doing it, they keep talking about freedom and democracy. They keep emphasizing how beautiful is that you enjoy freedom of choice, that you don't live in a totalitarian regime like China or Venezuela or Iran or that are supposed to be totalitarian regimes, authoritarian. There is no democracy. They are all dictators, Maduro is a dictator. Xi is a dictator. Putin is a dictator. All of them are dictators. And they are not like us, because that's what you are supposed. That's the patterns, and how we are supposed to perceive. Do you remember Bush? They hate our freedoms. Do you remember that phrase? They hate our freedoms. Yeah. Yes, that's what they hate. They don't hate that the American establishment, the neocons, the plutocrats and oligarchs behind all these wars are the ones responsible for the destruction of the death of people, destruction of the economies, enslavement of people, because they don't care. They are so deeply they don't care about people. They don't care about land and environment. They only care about controlling territory, controlling people, controlling the law, controlling the economies, the resources, the financial system, with a powerful, with two things or three or four, but a web of deceit. Okay? Cultural imperialism, military hegemony, a financial structure, international structure that empowers it, that makes almost impossible to escape the prison that we are not supposed to see, because we are not supposed to understand that the financial system, the existing financial international, the so-called international, the rules-based international order, is just a prison, an enslavement mechanism that operates both internationally at the global level, but also at domestic level. But no, how do you perceive it if you are part of the MAGA movement? They hate our freedoms. That's how Trump and the people around him or above him want you, American citizen, to understand that there is no nation like America. There is no, I mean, that's incomparable. That's nothing that compares with America. And those disgraceful countries, they just ate, they ate your freedoms, you know. They don't like it. Yes. And then you think that everything that you understand about your country, about the elites that control you, it's part of a free thinking process. It's a free choice. Yes, that's right. No, that's wrong. And the more you think that, the more you believe that Trump and all the people surrounding him want to end the wars. Why do they want to go to war? Why do they want to invade Venezuela now? Isn't it a lie? Is not a repetition of the lies that they used, the same patterns, the same almost the same language framing. Okay? They used to invade Iraq and destroy Iraq and Libya. The men that were supposed to bring peace and there are so many intelligent people that try to excuse him. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand why they do it. Because when you have that anti-socialist mentality or anti-communist mentality, you only see one thing, the obligation to excuse everything and anything that comes from these right-wing nationalists and populist governments or candidates or personalities or whatever. What do you do not get about the lesser of two evils paradigm or free choice? What is there? What is the difficulty to grasp it, to understand it? Is it not correct? Is not what the elections, the US elections are about? To pick one of the lesser of two evils? I mean, yeah, and why lesser of two evils? It's because if you are on the progressive side, you know, if you are more for certain values, usually not really class, you know, it's not about being aware, being class consciousness, but about cultural consciousness, gender, sex and race and this and that. You see the lesser of two evils in the democratic side. If you are more like a conservative person, more influenced by the conservative values, you know, family, tradition, you know, all these things that everybody knows what it means, you supposedly perceive the lesser of the two evils on the candidate from the other side. And meanwhile, you ignore everybody else. Okay? Because, they do not have. You perceive the other candidates, okay, as people that don't have the skills or don't whatever, but you just perceive them, you just ignore them, or you don't even know about their existence because you don't do the research, or you just think there is nothing they can do to change the system. But you yourself, or when I talk you yourself, I talk about all of us, the majority of people, we don't think about getting organized and unite around the principles and values that should be the basis, the pillars of a just and where the truth and justice and trust should be important, and the collective well-being should be important. Not punish people, because this is stupid to punish people, to call them. One thing that is a point for the people, the non-believers in the afterlife, is that at least they understand they have only one life to live, and therefore that life should be fully lived. You should be able to live a life with dignity, a life with purpose, a meaningful life. And that meaning should be built by you, not by others. Okay? Not by following dictates or formulas. Okay? Or by just feeling the need to buy this and that with the money you don't have, to impress people that you don't like, sometimes at least. So, the thing is that we need to understand all these processes, because again, I'm going to repeat again not from other monologues of mine, these talks in the wilderness, it's the reason why you don't see alternatives, why most of us don't see alternatives, that we don't have a strong belief in the possibility of changing, of a system change, is because of learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is not a natural thing. It has to be learned. We are inoculated with it. It's a socio-cultural, political and economic inoculation that keeps us trapped in a narrative framing that disables us to see, to have hope, truly hope, and to be able to fight for a system change. That's called learned helplessness. And most of us suffer from it. Most of us are trapped within this cage. We are trapped in this cage. We are imprisoned in this mental cage. And nevertheless, again, this is part of the web of deceit. And we continue to believe that everything we do, everything we believe, everything we want is part of a process of free choice, which of course it is not. but it doesn't matter, because that's how our cognitive affective systems work, and it's not going to change. It's only awareness. It's only a conscious transformative process, a training, a want, a wish, the wish to understand the reality, to understand the true nature of the human condition, which is social and cultural, and why it matters, to a true process to build a cultural liberation, you know? In class, caste, societal systems, there is a simple rule to follow, which is cui bono, follow the money. And that rule is very helpful, and we can all use it to understand why why we have a system, why the web of deceit is so important to keep us distracted from, not only distracted, deluded, divided, and so on and so forth, to concentrate ourselves in this cui bono pattern or frame of work, which is not obvious for sure. So there are how the law is used, how all the mechanisms through which they confuse us, like they talk about, for example, cutting taxes, and many of us don't understand what taxes are for, do not understand money, how money is created and allocated, do not understand many things about the economy. We just know that you have to work, and if we don't have money, we just cannot have a roof over our heads or food on the table, and so on and so forth. So that's how we understand it, because we have to earn the money, because we live in a system of manufactured scarcity. That's another concept, which is another tool, important tool to understand our reality, the reality of a caste class societal system. So therefore we have our common sense makes us vulnerable to be manipulated again when they compare the macroeconomics and the government budget as a family budget. Or they have this is lies and inaccuracies, and they don't help us at all. They confuse us. They don't help us to understand the rules of the system. And why they don't want us to understand it? To understand the laws, the true laws of the economy, how does the economic and the financial and banking system really works, who should have the power to create money out of nothing, out of thin air, and all these, these issues that are, they are really important, because many people don't even understand that most of the inflation is caused by interest and compound interest and financial speculation. Because in financialized economies, especially in financialized economies, the rentier class, these parasites, is the fire sector, finance, real estate, finance, insurance, and real estate. They do not produce anything. They just speculate and extract wealth through speculation. They rise artificially the prices, namely of the real estate, and they put everyone else. There is, if you go and look, the prices of houses always go up much faster than the rise of your income. Okay, that has been stagnated for decades, almost more or less stagnated. So they don't want you to understand these mechanisms and how they are important to understand our reality. And this is another point that we do need to, because again, we are victims of manipulation, and we need to understand it. We cannot, I think it's a Stockholm syndrome, okay? We must stop excusing the perpetrator, the abuser, or the abusers, and the system that is tailored to favor them. Okay? And you can only do it by through the process of conscious transformative process. Otherwise, that allows you to understand how these people use perception manipulation to keep us, to not allow us to have an accurate perception of the reality, of how the very systems that on we depend to survive and have a meaningful life with dignity, they don't want us to understand it. They don't want to understand that these systems are hijacked by them, are controlled by them, to favor them, to protect their interests. And then they just have the mechanism, they just perfection the mechanisms of the managed democracy to keep us fighting each other, and they just keep accumulating more wealth and concentrating more power until the moment there will be a formal dictatorship. We have an informal dictatorship, but there will be a formal dictatorship as the liberal system is totally broken and is not able to shore the revolts. So it's just we are in that limbo, in that transition from informal dictatorship to formal dictatorship, because they don't want us to organize, because they know the moment we will become, when class consciousness becomes important to us, and when we do understand the roots of the problems, we do not care anymore if they to be called communists or socialists, because that's not the point. That we already, it doesn't affect us, because we don't, we see beyond that, that's the smoke screen. So we don't care anymore, because it doesn't matter if you identify yourself as a communist or socialist. You might not even identify yourself with socialism or communism, because you might have a different view and perspective, which is fair, which is perfectly legitimate. But it's the idea that you liberated yourself from the stigma and the taboo of not wanting to be identified as a communist or socialist, because you defend certain ideas. Because what they want is that they want to stop us, they want to prevent us from searching certain issues and topics, and that's why they frame it as evil and as anti-American and anti-democratic and anti-this and anti-that, because that's the way they try to keep us, to avoid us to be interested in it, to gain interest in it. But that's where it is very important to understand language framing, then perception manipulation, and why it matters. That you can be, we can be manipulated to fight against our own interests, and that is very, and it is more common than most of us believe, because we believe that everything we do, everything we think, is part of a free choice process, which is not. But unless we become aware of it, and we train us into holistic thinking, and train our critical critical thoughts, thinking, to critical analysis, because it needs to be trained. If we don't train it, we don't really use it. That's as plain as this. If you don't train it, if you don't learn how logical fallacies work, if you don't learn about how demagoguery works, and many other the relevance of language framing and metaphors and other stuff, of course you are much more, you are so easily manipulated that you don't even perceive it. You don't even notice it. I mean, you don't notice it because you, inside of you yourself, you train yourself subconsciously. You train yourself to survive and to adapt to this, to live and survive in this system based on a web of deceit. That's what you do. We don't need to do it subconsciously. It just is part of the process of adapting to an existing reality, which is normal. That's what human beings do as sociocultural beings, but that's what other animals do as well, in adapting to their environment. to optimize the survival hypothesis, possibilities. It's normal. It's just we need to be aware of it. And again, it is not enough to be intellectually aware, to have the knowledge, to have the information available. It needs to be part of a conscious transformative process that you are aware. You know that you want to change, you want to be consciously working on the process of make other narratives dominant, because you need the narratives. You need that's how culture works. So you just need to be conscious, to consciously train yourself into making the old narratives obsolete and new narratives dominant. Not just because you want to change, to modernize yourself, to have a more modern version of the same old narratives. No, it's because you want to build a culture of liberation, and you want to build a base knowledge, value system that helps you to be consciously part of that culture of liberation. A culture of liberation that needs to understand the root problems of our societal systems and our imperialistic civilizational paradigm. Otherwise, we are just tools and instruments in powerful hands that don't want at all the collective well-being, your well-being, my well-being, and the well-being of most of us. So, whether we understand this and do something about it in a conscious manner, or we are victims that support and excuse the perpetrators, the ones that abuse us, that instrumentalize us, that will use us as cannon fodder and useful idiots, and then they will dump us because they don't care about us, they don't have empathy or compassion, because most of those that really seek power and only think about total control, because that's what they want. They want to build monopolies, to control everything and everyone. That's what they do. They don't care about what they do with us for as long as they feel that they are building their empires. So this is how we operate, and we need to stop it. I mean, there are many versions. I mean, I'm not trying to define a single pattern, because there is a plurality of patterns and a plurality of realities, and the diversity of ideas and narratives. But the point is that we we all operate in the within the same system. I mean, that's the main point. The diversity is delusional. It exists, but it just the diversity and plurality exists, cultural, social, and even political, and blah blah blah. But the economic system that or the political economy is really the system that controls all of us. That's why it is important to understand it, to understand finance, economics, money, and all the rest, macroeconomy, and all the rest that is related, all the systems and subsystems of what we call the economy. Because that's through the economy, through the regulations, through the legal system, that is the rules that oppress us are codified into law, the rules that allow them to control, to build all the mechanisms that allow them to not pay taxes, to hide their wealth through using trusts and fiscal paradises, and all these mechanisms that we that are oppressing us, exploiting us, keep us poor, that they use the manufactured scarcity to keep us in line, subservient, and that we fight each other, that we compete each other for crumbs, and we most of the time do not even understand what's going on. Because again, I have to go back to the same problem. We we go back and forth in the lesser of two evils dynamic, which makes us going from Obama from Obama to Trump, or from Biden to Trump, and nothing changes, and things just get worse and worse. And then the other side says, "Oh, all the problems are created by this." The set of policies, blah 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 blah, and endless wars. The cost of living increasing. Destitute people, the number of destitute people growing, and and so many people in our capitalist system, they feel guilty, which is is another important point. They feel guilty, and they want to hide their poverty. They excuse the very system that reproduces the poverty that is causing it, and because they feel guilty, and they feel the obligation to try to find a solution, and they are isolated. They don't organize. I mean, they feel guilt and shame. Why? Why should you feel guilt and shame if you have done nothing wrong? What have you done? What have most of you done that are you responsible for the prices of the housing going up? Are you don't that's the point. You don't understand that you are a victim, not the perpetrator, and that there is a system in place, or a complex system made of several systems, and this complex system is organized in a way to exploit you, to not allow you to flourish and to have a meaningful life, because you are a peon, you are a tool that the system uses when it needs you, and just you become part of a basket of deplorables when you are not needed anymore. So and you need to understand that's how these elites perceive you, the ones that are behind the very system that tells you that you should hate immigrants because they are the problem. You know, and all of them are criminals. Only criminals come into, or you should ignore the reasons why there is so many people trying to come into America. You know, it's not because America is great. It's because at least in America if they can find a job, and they even being exploited, they can make some money, because to save some money to send to their families. That's the reason. But you should understand, why do they have their economies destroyed and their countries destroyed? Who destroyed them? It's not only the wars. That's the financial system in place. That's the economic system. That's the so-called rules-based international order. And that you are also victim of it. But you are supposed to align and identify yourself with the perpetrators. They are using you. They don't want you to understand the roots of the problems and how the reality works. And why you are also a victim. Why you are you have much more in common with the immigrant than with that guy that is manipulating you. The very system that owns and controls your life and gives you the illusion of the principle of the private property ownership and the pursuit of self-interest and the freedom of choice is somehow good for the it kind of reproduces the collective good, but it doesn't, because the point is that this very system uses the principle and the values that we associate with the goodness of the private property rights and the private property accumulation and wealth accumulation and the pursuit of self-interest as the the core values for life. You know, these are the core values that we should pursue, because they are the ones that express our the nature of the human condition. That they are the ones that we truly should that they are our true identity. That's the true identity of humanity, which is not. But that's how we are supposed to perceive you. That's how to build your identity, to build our identity. And then we are so attached to private property because we see private property as the salvation against anonymity, against destitution, you know, in order to be proud of ourselves and not feel shame and guilt of our social condition, that we try to escape, to build wealth, to accumulate our little pile of wealth in the form of private property or whatever it is, and our professional career, you know, and all that social recognition that will give you social recognition that you are part of the middle class, or even upper middle class, if it is the case. But this is not an illusion, because it is real that your life conditions are better the upper you climb the social ladder. But there is always strings attached. You know, you have, in many cases, you have to become, sometimes you have to deny yourself. You have to annihilate your very self, your true feelings, your true nature. You betray yourself. You become you become just a tool again, an instrument, in order to pursue the self-interest. You follow orders. You fulfill duties. You play a role. And it's not because, to a certain extent, in whatever society we will need to do some concessions for sure, and to do things that we don't like, because that has to be part of the process of cooperation, to which I call reciprocity economy, you know, sufficiency and reciprocity economy, that is all together. But we just believe that's the only way to fulfill, to have lives with fulfillment, is the pursuit of self-interest and the accumulation of wealth and private property. That is not ours in the end, because it can be confiscated by the very people. You might believe that is the state and the government that is going to steal it from you, that can confiscate it, that can use an excuse a justification to justify the confiscation. But that's not the government. It is the government, but it is not the government. It is those who control the government. It is those that own the system. It is those that control your life that can do it, if they need to do it in order to control you. By you, I mean all of us, for sure. So, and this is why it's meaningless to talk about democracy, to talk about free choice, to talk about lots of, to all the slogans, the Western slogans, are empty shells, but they are useful for the purpose of mind control, for the purpose of keeping us divided, for the purpose of keeping us distracted. That's why they need the web of deceit. To control us, to keep us in that state of mind that we think, we believe, we perceive as ourselves as free thinkers, people that exercise free choice within a system, while we are operating in a system that is not controlled by us, that is not democratic by any means. So this is very easy to understand. But as this quote, I have to memorize the name of the guy that wrote it, you know, because it's so very true. We go mad in crowds, and we just recover our senses one by one. And this is why it's so difficult to get people organized and united, because we just recover our senses through the process, through the conscious transformative process, one by one. You know, that's why we need to talk to each other. That's why we need groups of reflection and movements. Because social media might be useful for certain things, but the bonds that we need to create are social. They are cultural, they are ideological, they are political. But they also need to be social, which means they need the presence. They need the physical interaction. You know, they need that we feel that others are tuned. We are tuned together to build trust. And that is needed at all levels, local, national, international. We need to fight against nationalism, especially this right-wing nationalism, because it is fascistic. People do not get it, but it is. It just helps those who don't want, by any stretch of the imagination, a system change. They want scapegoating. They scapegoat whatever is necessary. Progressive, the leftists. It's all the blame is on the leftists, the immigrants, the LGBTQ, PT, whatever it is. All these things are to blame for social degeneration, for economic depravity, and everything else. Okay? But not the very system that for decades and centuries allowed consequently the very few to concentrate the wealth and private property and power, and to use it to control us, and by the way, to use the resources, to waste the resources on building, to fulfill their whims, their megalomaniac projects, to try to externalize themselves, because they are sociopaths, megalomaniac psychopaths, and they are narcissistic. That's why they do not care at all about how much damage they cause to nature, to the environment, to people, to territories, to whatever. And they are dangerous individually, and as organized groups, they are absolutely dangerous. And that's our common, they are our common enemy. They are the enemy of humanity. Because they are the ones that truly do not represent humanity. Because they lack what is essential for the survival of humanity, which is empathy and compassion. That without it, we of course don't care what we do to others. What matters is our agendas and objectives. And the system that we have is exactly, if we want to have a closer look, we can easily perceive that the system we have, this societal system, this economic paradigm, this civilizational imperialistic paradigm, is exactly based on these rules and principles that have been perfected by this sociopathic and psychopathic elite. And this is not only a Western phenomenon. That's why we need internationalist movements, not nationalist movements. Because the kind of system change that we need requires more, cannot be only done by a single country, even a very powerful country. It requires as many as possible. As it, it's a collective effort. It must be a collective endeavor. But meanwhile, each one of us needs to recover our senses, which means needs to go through a conscious transformative process in order to train, to make new narratives dominant in our minds and the old ones obsolete. Otherwise, we surely won't get any change. It's just the same old repetition of cycles, from liberal to fascism, And all these kind of endless fake change processes, because nothing changes if the existing order, if the same very people that controls the wealth and concentrates the power, they are not challenged, and their power is not destroyed. That's it. Okay, that is all for today. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.